What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to another off-season edition of Wildly Informed. Brett and Isha back with you. Was hoping we'd have a little more news, major Wild news to talk about, but pretty boring, but we'll get into it later. But in my opinion, pretty good start to the off-season for the Wild by not overspending. We'll kind of have a little mix of Wild NHL talk today. We'll go through kind of the notable free agents. We'll talk a little bit about Marco Rossi and his offer sheet scenario because I haven't seen that dug into too much yet. We'll talk about some trades, and then we will, of course, take a look at both Nico, Sturm, and Vladimir Tarasenko. But before we get into all that, Isha, been a hot minute since we chatted. How you doing?
Pretty good. You'd think that I'd be like kind of hockeyed out at this point. It's that time of the summer, but because of from a Wild perspective, and I would say on a lesser note, from me being from the West Coast, a Vancouver Canucks perspective, it was kind of dry, bland, and then obviously free agency. Not that we had a lot of expectations, but it was kind of dry, bland. We didn't see, Ehlers be signed for a few days after. It was just like, I feel like I should be exhausted. But I'm kind of like, man, I'm not 100% satisfied yet. So as soon as you messaged me and we're like, yo, you want to do a podcast? I was like, yes, because there's some stuff to talk about. And I still have a little bit of a hockey scratch to itch here before I completely go full freaking combat sports until September, October.
Check out until a Rossi extension or trade or a Kaprizov extension, and then
or
check out
more Ice Wars shows, which Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship bought Ice Wars, and funny enough, the first show, Michigan's commission made them wear gloves, but they went up to Edmonton, and Edmonton's commission up there with the land of no commissions said, "Yeah, we don't care, do whatever you want." So,
well, they should.
So good. So far, so good.
Got to get Nick Tarnaski in there
dude. Yes. Honestly, I wouldn't surprise me if they already gave him a call. Like DKFC or Savage like that.
Hey, want to do this and not potentially face legal trouble for punching you guys' teeth in on the golf course?
Yeah, you want to do it on. And there's another thing in Michigan. They had synthetic ice, and a lot of the actual the actual hockey players used to fight. It threw them off a bit, and those who just were fighters or boxers who threw on some skates because they knew how to skate, they were like, oh, this is not ice. So again, now that they brought the show back to Canada, and there's certain other parts of the states that their fight commissions are a little bit more blasé-faire, or they'll go on indigenous reserves and whatnot. I think now that's the strategy, because even some of the fighters were like, this is not ice.
Yeah.
Not what I was looking for.
And if you've never skated on synthetic ice, you can stride, but it reacts very differently.
But think about it in a fight, momentum in a fight where you're grabbing it's less of a slide and go where it's it's very choppy almost. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't really glide. You can't really turn very well. You can't really turn sharply. So, I mean, it works if you're testing out a pair of skates real quick, or you're maybe doing some straightforward skating. But yeah, if you're trying to maneuver and plant and glide and push, it ain't gonna work. But
yeah, so that was one of the big, I guess the big critiques and the biggest feedback from the first show. And then the second show apparently went well, and they're all systems go. So I guess that'll keep me entertained from somewhat hockey side. I mean, they do it in Russia, and it's just obviously just crazier over there. They do it on a full sheet of ice with 5v5, and it's just dude, it's almost
line brawls.
It's not even the punches to the face that are brutal. It's when they get knocked out hitting the ice, and you're like, oh, dude, there's no, you think there'd be more refs hovering to try to save them, but it's the Wild freaking East.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyways, there's my extended intro. Ice Wars.
Alrighty. Well, Ice Wars done and out of the way. So let's get into NHL free agency as part of our hockey headlines. We'll deviate slightly from our normal pattern, but try to keep things pretty normal here. So we won't spend time breaking down every single one of these, but I put into our outline here just some of the ones I thought were notable, or more of the quote unquote big names or familiar names. So Mikael Granlund goes to the Ducks 3x7. Good for him for going and showing out in Dallas and getting paid, because I think before his playoff run, I don't think he was going to be making $7 million on his next deal. One of my favorite targets in free agency, Nikolai Ehlers goes to Carolina, 6 by $8.5 million. I thought that just like makes sense. Like he just feels like a Carolina Hurricane type of player, like analytical darling. And
yeah, and he made it known that like though he like loved Winnipeg, it didn't feel like it was that much of a pressure cooker compared to like Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto. He still said it was a lot, and I kind of just want to do my own thing and not necessarily be a superstar off the ice. And what better? But he wanted to also be on a competitive team, so I feel like Carolina checks both the boxes. What's up, puppy?
You want to come say hi? Here.
And as far as Granlund, I mean, how can you not like Mikael Granlund?
Special
Solid
guest
player.
for this segment.
Hey, look at that, making the first appearance.
Hey, look over here. Look at that. Look at that.
If Rue won't get his views, I don't know what will.
Yeah, right.
Getting big.
All right. Yeah, she's up to about 20 pounds now, probably. All right, do you need to go downstairs? Here, I'm just gonna unlock the gate for her quick.
There we go. We got two names in. I'm excited to get into this next one though with Brett here, given that Brett is the Minnesota local. And I was just segueing into Brent Burns going to Colorado.
Yes, he is the next one. I don't think the actual like official terms for his deal came out, but I think I heard he can get up to like $5 million in AAV based on like performance bonuses and stuff. One of these ones that surprised me, not like a necessarily free agent signing, but an extension. Columbus extends Ivan Provorov.
They just want his dog.
$7 by $8.5 million.
Do you see him working out with that golden retriever? I swear they're just like, oh, we just want this dog's vibes. We don't want you to leave.
Yeah, I don't know. Like he's an okay defenseman, like a top 4 probably, but $8.5 million is a lot.
And we have to be. I mean, you broke it down on this show, Brett. We have to be thinking 3 years in the future now, because in 3 years, that's going to be a $5 million. That's what like a $5 million defenseman in our like eyes and mind look like.
But like to jump ahead a little bit, the New York Rangers give Vladislav Gavrikov 7 by 7. That's a way better contract. Like I'd much rather have Gavrikov over Provorov.
I think so.
Especially $1.5 million cheaper.
It is weird that like the free agent got the deal that was like, oh, that's a good deal, and the extension was a slightly overpayment. You can argue even like a vastly overpayment, but you know what I mean? It's like the roles were reversed a little bit. There was no extension discount coming from Provorov.
But at the same time, Columbus is in a spot where I think they're kind of finally trying to break through and become a team that, maybe it isn't a contender right away, but like they want to become a playoff team. I think they're sick of sitting on the sidelines, and so I can see why they want to lock a guy like that up.
Yeah, what's up, Trav? What's up, Big Bear?
Oilers, go to the Cup final. Nothing too dramatic for them. The notable extension to Evan Bouchard, 4 by 10.5. I think that makes sense for him. Sounds like they maybe had to go a little bit up on their AAV because it's what I heard reported was that Carolina may have been putting together an offer sheet for him. That's Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts, I think.
Carolina and their
freaking
they're freaking offer sheets, man.
Yeah. And then they pivoted to a trade, which we'll cover in the trade portion of this. And then another sign that I liked, Andrew Mangiapane, 2 by $3.6 million.
Love that deal.
Yeah, he's a guy like if the Wild hadn't got like a Tarasenko or like looking for just like an upgrade over Johansson in the top 6, like he would have been a guy that had been like, that's fine. Like he's not gonna like do anything crazy, but he can probably get him 40-45 points playing.
Bona fide third liner who can be elevated in a pinch. Yeah, really good skater.
Usually good underlying analytics as well. So nice little signing for them there. Florida manages to keep the band together.
I said they would, dude. I said they would. Somehow, some way.
Like some pretty like crazy deals, like both good and bad in here. We'll start. Brad Marchand gets $5.25 million AAV. Nothing wrong with that, but a 6-year extension. He is signed until he is 43 years old, which is crazy. He's going to be going for like the Yager years, but
bro, I mean, if there's anyone that can do it, it's Brad Marchand.
Yeah, so like that one is off the term was crazy, but hey, do what you got to do to lock him in, I suppose.
Well, and if he retires, then he retires. It's like okay,
right. Yeah, and I don't know how.
I think maybe they're banking on him retiring in like 3 years.
Yeah, and I don't know like what the new rules with the new CBA, how that affects contracts. Not really want to dig into right now. Aaron Ekblad, 8 by 6.1 million. Probably left some money on the table there to go back to Florida, but
he admitted so too on TSN.
Yeah.
And another thing he said in an interview is like, yeah, like basically alluding to like, we're not the Washington Capitals. We are going to go for 3. So basically they spent like a week partying, a week with their family partying. Like they're obviously going to get like their day with the cup and everything. But he said they had like an internal meeting. Like it wasn't like the Panthers told them to meet. They all had a meeting and they said, whoever's injured, start getting right. Whoever is ready to start training, start training. Like we are going for 3. So like they are dialed in. And that was just sprung on by, I think it was James Duffy asking him on TSN, just like, did he leave some, like asking him without asking him directly, did you leave money on the table? And he said, look, we were going to do whatever we could to keep the band together because we want to make history. And I was like,
yeah. And I think,
let's go.
And obviously like state income tax probably helps in the situation, right? You're leaving slightly less because you're getting more of it in your pocket. But I think it also just speaks to what culture that Florida has managed to build down there with their team, with how tightly knit that group is. So good for them on that.
And there's so many bonuses you get every round you win in the playoff too. Right. So like it's there's a lot of money and there's sponsorship money that these individual athletes are getting to. Like the Florida Panthers players are getting paid one way or another, right?
Right. And then the other one, they did manage to get Sam Bennett locked up as well, 8 by 8 for him. So probably an overpay for what he is as a regular season player, but just within the Conn Smythe was an absolute force for them in the playoffs and seems to be a player whose game always elevates in the playoffs. So I think it's a fair deal for him. Probably maybe even a little bit less than what he potentially would have gotten on open market, but I think pretty close to what he would have gotten. Next team here. The LA Kings, which I just thought was, they had kind of interesting thing, a lot of cap space, but used it on more depth. Corey Perry, 1 by 2 million. That guy's just proven time and time again that he can still be a useful piece in your bottom 6.
So who else bet on the Kings making the finals, but not winning?
Yeah,
I did. The second he signed, I was like, what sportsbook has that on there?
Is it like 5 of the last 6 or something? He's been on the losing team or something crazy like that.
Yeah. It's insane.
He's the new Marian Hossa.
But it's worse, dude. It's worse.
They also snagged up Yoel Armia, 2 by 2.5. I liked that signing. He'd be a guy I would have been interested in for that bottom 6 role for the Wild. Good penalty killer, a player they were Wild reportedly interested in at the deadline last year. Nothing came to that. Brian Dumoulin, who I've always liked his game as like kind of a top 4, number 5 defenseman, 3 by 4 million, pretty fair deal for him. And then the absolute craziest contract given out, Cody Ceci manages to land another contract, 4 by 4.5. He has the best agent in hockey, and I'm pretty sure he has blackmail on Ken Holland at this point. Like
that, or just Ken Holland is just that
in love
dumb.
with Cody Ceci,
or just that dumb. Like I'm sorry, like Ken Holland must have just gotten lucky as hell and was surrounded by the right people when he was in Detroit. Because like, what the hell has he been doing since? And by the way, Corey Perry, Montreal, Tampa, and then Edmonton. The last. Oh, sorry. Montreal, Tampa, and then to his last 2 years. He didn't go He only played how many? Oh no, Dallas too, right? Oh my God. So yeah, it was Dallas, Montreal, Tampa, Edmonton.
Yeah, so it's been pretty nuts the ride he's been on here.
Oh my God.
Minnesota, obviously, aside from all the minor league signings, just Nico Sturm, 2 by 2. We'll talk a little about him in a bit, so I don't want to spend too much time there. Nashville signs, I believe, Minnesota native Nick Burbix. I believe he played his college hockey at St. Cloud, 2 by 2.25. Nice, solid third pair signing for them. New Jersey, busy with some kind of depth and middle lineup pieces. Jake Allen, 5 by 1.8 million to lock him in as the backup. So they got their goaltending duo locked down for quite a while now. Connor Brown, who was with the Oilers last year, 4 by 3 million, battled through some injuries the last couple seasons and seems to be on the up and up. So they take a shot there.
First time playing for an American team. He's with the Senators before then, right?
I think so. That sounds right. Yeah. Evgeny Dadonov, 1 by 1. So taking a flyer on him. Wild legend and hoppy favorite, Kellen Addison.
Yes. Legend on the Sota pod.
Yes. 1 by $775,000. And then they also extend Cody Glass 2 by $2.5 million. And their next big one, I believe, Luke Hughes is still a pending RFAs left to get him a new deal. Kind of curious to see where that comes in, if he gets kind of that Faber Sanderson money or if maybe he does maybe bet on himself and go for a bridge. But should be interesting there. Islanders, who I think are a team that's in a very just weird spot right now. Obviously got the first overall pick twice from their Noah Dobson trade, which we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But they signed just, again, some couple depth pieces. Dave Riddick, big save Dave, 1x1 for the backup goalie position. Jonathan Drouin going back to with Patrick Waugh, 2x4 million. Emil Heineman, 2x1.1 million, probably to fill in their fourth line in the absence of Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck, who both retired this offseason.
Crazy that Matt Martin was still playing. Like Clutterbuck, was kind of always slow, but just did his own thing. Matt Martin, I mean, like, and both of them in the no visor club too, which was awesome.
Right. Yeah. And then the other like notable one that maybe a lot of people didn't really know about as much is Maxim. I think it's Shabanov. What's a KHL free agent? Like I think a lot of teams are kind of in the mix on him. I believe 20 goals in each of his last 3 seasons, kind of like a sneaky, don't know what it would be, but
I love when teams take flyers on these guys because they either do not work and don't even make it out of training camp, like the Shipashev in Vegas, or they come in like Kuzmenko and just put up 30, 40 goals.
Was it Panarin out of the KHL?
Panarin was another one. Yeah, this guy's solid, man. 50 to 60 point guy. Almost 70 points this year. Yeah, 25 goals.
I think he's 24 years old.
I'll bring up his hockey DB on screen. But yeah, dude, I love when teams take flyers on these guys, man. Always like growing up in Canada, whenever the wave of college free agents and then like Russian or Swedes, and it was mostly KHL guys, hit the free agency market, that's when always like I kept tabs and was like, oh, these are the guys. Like, what are some of these sneaky players that even if they don't become superstars, just can become players on your team? And yeah, this guy, look at his freaking resume, 24 years of age. Yeah. I wonder why he was passed up in the draft so many times.
I'm guessing the fact that he's 5'8", 156 pounds maybe has something to do with it. So he's small, but yeah, we'll see. So one is about there. We talked about Gavrikov, 7x7. Rangers also bridge Will Cooley, 2x3.9 million. So he's definitely taking a bet on himself. I think they really like what he brings to their middle six. The Flyers up next year, they extend Cam York 5x5.15. Not a bad deal there. Gave a pretty big fourth line contract to Christian Dvorak, 1x5.5 million. Maybe an overpay, but again, I think it's hard to overpay a player
for 1 year
deal. Yeah,
I could see. Yeah, I mean, I could see it working out for him too. I feel like Dvorak, he just has not been in a position to succeed. Like with those Arizona teams, and then Montreal when they like before they really even got their cast and crew that they're going to go with together now. And he's faced so many injuries. Like I think last year was the only year that he was like fully healthy. I think in his entire NHL run. I'm not a big Flyers fan. I don't hate them as much as Hoppy does, but given that he's like the Pittsburgh guy and his brother's a Flyers fan, I do hope that it works out for Dvorak though, because I've always thought he's one of those guys with like a pretty high ceiling and a pretty high floor too, which is why he's still in the league. Mm-hmm. But just we haven't seen him pan out. And I just remember watching him in London just absolutely torch, and I don't know, there were just flashes of it early in his career, and I've always just kind of rooted for him wherever he went.
I believe Paul Fenton, when he has brief tenure as the Wild GM, attempted to trade, I think, for him and Christian Fischer. At the time, I believe they're both Cody's, and I believe that would have been like a Jason Zucker type of deal. But that never came to fruition. The other player they added, goaltender Dan Vladar, 2x3.35 million.
Darth Vlader, as he was known in Calgary. That's a good one. I think they didn't have a Star Wars night on their schedule, and once they had him, they're like, oh yeah, we have to, we have to do one.
Yes. Let's see. Next up, I'm on this the Seattle Kraken, who gave out what, in my opinion, was probably one of the worst deals in free agency to Ryan Lindgren, $4x4.5 million. The guy basically just hits people and gets caved analytically pretty much every shift, and that was including on teams that were pretty good analytically. He played with Adam Fox with the Rangers, basically tanked Adam Fox's numbers to shit. Didn't do much in Colorado. When Russo floated him out, I was like, yeah, the Wild should move. Like if they wanted to move Brodin, maybe replace him with Ryan Lindgren. I'm like, absolutely the fuck not. Please no, please no. This guy is like Jake Middleton, who can't, like if Middleton had no hockey skill. Like that's basically all he is.
That was just a take from Russo to appease Burnsville freaking fans.
Could be. And then Matt Murray, 1x1, some goaltending insurance there. St. Louis fills out their center depth, adding Nick Bukestad, Wild legend, Blaine High School legend, 2 by 1.75 million. Solid deal for him. And then Pew Suter, which I think this is a nice deal for them too.
Sick, dude, that the Vancouver Canucks didn't offer him this.
Yeah, pretty reasonable deal.
Sick,
2 by
dude.
4.125 million. He's a good middle six center. I think his numbers at 5v5 this year were phenomenal.
He's never going to get numbers like those again. Don't get me wrong, but like apparently, and this is I listen to a lot of Vancouver media still too. Apparently, like the number that everyone reporting on it, right? Like TSN, Sportsnet guys, he wanted like 5.56 per year, and it's like what? And it's like okay, maybe on a 2-year deal, his agent wanted that, but I see that this is a 2-year deal at 4, and it's just like good. Again, from a Canucks perspective here, guys, it's like what the fuck.
Yeah,
I was not happy to see the St. Louis Blues. I'm just slowly just not liking the Blues. I'm becoming more of like that hatred towards the Blues that the Wild have, which isn't as bad as like your guys' hatred towards like the Avs or Chicago. But like, I used to be a sucker for the Blues because I love their logo. I'm a music guy. Now I'm just kind of like, fuck the Blues.
Well, they did just do kind of a slight rebrand too. If you didn't see that, they have like they're basically like kind of embraced their retro look. So they went to like the lighter blue, I think slightly tweaked the logo. And then they got some really cool like secondary and tertiary logos that they'll be on the uniforms. I think it looks good. It's a nice upgrade over what they previously had, in my opinion.
Tarasenko looked good in the Blues jersey.
You did. Hopefully it looks good in a Wild jersey too. Maple Leafs, their big signing was extending Matthew Nyes 6 by 7.
What a deal.
5.
What
which is a good deal. And then you remember that the Wild have Matt Boldy at $7 million, and you just like that is amazing. And then also lock up Steven Lorentz 3 by 1.35 million. Good bottom 6 guy for them. Good deal there. Utah pretty busy.
Well, I mean, we just have to say like let's hope that Nyes fills at least some of the hole left by Mitch Marner, right? He's going to be elevated to a bigger role now.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what he can do there. Obviously, like Minnesota Gopher legends, always want to root for those players that had ties to Minnesota somehow. Utah wins the JJ Peterka trade sweepstakes. We'll talk about the specifics of the trade, but then they do get him and then sign him to 5 by 7.7 million bucks, which is probably about what he would have gotten elsewhere.
I think that's fine.
Nate Schmidt earns a well-deserved contract, 3 by 3.35 or 3.5 million. Cool to see for him to battle back.
Love Nate Schmidt, dude. I've loved him when he was with the Capitals. I was the only person who rooted for him when he was with the Canucks. Everyone else just chased him away. Yeah, dude. What an awesome human being. And I could go off about Nate Schmidt. I haven't had the pleasure of interviewing him yet, but Joe Smith and Hoppy, I think they hung out with them and interviewed them early, like before the season, and then we re-uploaded the interview recently after his cup win. So go check it out on the channel.
Yeah. Also a Minnesota native, St. Cloud, Minnesota, 3 years at Cathedral, and then 3 years at the University of Minnesota. So again, I always want to cheer for those Minnesota ties. They also had Brandon Tanev, 3 by 2.5 million. Yep. They extend former Wild prospect Jack McBain, 5 by 4.25 million. Should slide in nicely as kind of their 3C at a pretty reasonable price. And then they add a little goaltending depth in adding Vitek Vanacek. Insurance behind Karel Vejmelka because I believe Connor Ingram at present is still checked into the player assistance program. So just some insurance because, however long it takes. Scott Perunovich, who played at the University of Minnesota Duluth, gets a 1 by 7 points or $775,000 deal. He's basically Kalen Addison, like their same player, small undersized defenseman who can't defend but is really useful offensively on the power play. So we'll see how they utilize him. And then Kyler Yamamoto as well, 1 by $775,000. A once decent piece of the Oilers' middle six, but has just I think he had an injury one year and really hasn't.
Yeah, I mean he looked great in Tucson last year. I mean point per game, like just over point per game in the AHL. So let's see what he can do back up in the big leagues.
One of the biggest shockers in free agency here as we round out the free agents, Brock Besser extends in Vancouver 7 by 7.25 million, which is pretty crazy because it seemed like the writing was on the wall there that he was out of there. The Wild, that was apparently like the one free agent they had interest in, Russo reporting that he heard that they were ready to offer him up to 6 years. I don't know the dollar value. I would assume something around that $7 to $8 million range, but
he wanted term and he wanted to stay in Vancouver. Vancouver did not want to give him term. And that's what basically held it up until the last minute. Like literally until apparently they said 2 minutes after noon. Let's be honest, it was probably 2 minutes before noon. Because tampering doesn't happen in the NHL now, guys. They're just announcing the trades later. That's all. But
I think in the Canucks case, they still had the right to negotiate with him up until 2 o'clock.
No, I know, but it was just. Anyways, they said it was the last minute. I believe them fully. I think the money they didn't have an issue with, like the cap hit. I think it was just the term. I think a lot of Canucks fans were like, 7's a lot, 5, 6, 6 maximum, 5 would have been perfect. But I mean, this is him signing his big ticket, and he took a little bit of a pay cut to stay in his new home. So there we go. And he loves Vancouver and he loves his teammates. Apparently, Garland was calling him all morning just to be like, please stay, please stay, please stay, please stay, please stay. And then like Garland's wife said that, he called Besser in June and I guess June more than he called anyone in our family. So
well, hey, that's awesome too. Right? Like, again, we talked about like the Florida Panthers trying to build a culture where guys want to stay. Like, Garland's clearly bought into what they're doing. Pedersen.
The difference is, Brett, one of those teams wins. Yeah.
But hey, I mean, but again, like to get those guys to come
trade JT Miller for nothing.
Yeah. So but maybe they're trying to fix the culture that was seemingly kind of fractured last year.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I hope they are, and maybe signing Besser, going all in with like Pedersen, as the top center. They have to convince Hughes to stay somehow.
I was going to say that's the big one, right?
It's like if we can at least try to build the culture here, because let's be honest, if Evander Kane was going to be the fucking top line winger, I don't know how I'd survive another year on this earth as a Canucks fan.
Yeah. And then the final two on here, probably not super noteworthy to the teams or their fan bases, but notable to the Wild. Declan Chisholm, 2 by $1.6 million with the Capitals. Again, we talked several times on this show this season about how the Capitals seemingly find these guys that everybody else gave up on.
So good at it.
So good at good players. And I think Chisholm's going to slide into their top 4 and surprise a lot of people this year.
Duhaime and Chisholm now, two Wild, two players who very recently played for the Minnesota Wild and have really, Duhaime is a fan. I feel like he'll be a fan favorite wherever he goes, right? People loved him in his short stint with the Avs. People are loving him in Washington. I think the fans will love Chisholm as well. I mean, very different, obviously, style of game, very different position, but I feel like the hardcores understood the value of what Chisholm brought, and the Wild got him for free, man. So
yeah, and I think like the 1.6 million is probably a number higher than what they wanted to go for a guy that probably wouldn't be in the lineup a whole lot. But I did think it was interesting, given that it sounds like Jonas Brodin.
He's gonna be out for a little while.
Is gonna miss a couple games to start the season, so I mean that probably means you're immediately promoting Zeev Buium to the top 4.
He might be injured to start the season too.
Is he still rehabbing? So yeah, I mean you could be looking at no other changes that both Zeev Buium's in your top 4 and potentially a guy like Carson Lambos is on your third pair. So it'll be interesting, I think, to kind of see how that plays out, or if the Wild maybe look like. Do they bring John Merrill back on like a veteran minimum, like bonus laden contract as like a little bit of like as your number 8D or something?
At that point, just trade Bogosian straight up for some other dude and just see if it works out a little.
That's what I'd rather do.
Let's just take it. And if we have to go back to the John Merrill well,
like, it really can't be worse. So that's the thing.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like.
So
I feel Ken Holland will overpay even in a trade for Bogosian because he's a CC type of player, right?
Yeah. And then division rival for the last one here, Winnipeg Jets. Those dumbasses gave Gustav Nyquist 1 by $3.5 million. I don't know if their pro scouts just didn't watch him play a shift in the year 2025, but I'm pretty sure he scored 2 goals this calendar year, and one of them was an empty netter. He basically potentially cost the Wild the series against Vegas. I didn't think like the underlying numbers were fine, I guess, but like that guy is cooked.
Yeah, I don't know. He must have just been the only thing left out there, and they were like, "Damn, we got to bring something in to replace Ehlers." Yeah. Although, like Winnipeg's farm team has a bunch of again studs for the AHL level.
Mhm.
Clearly, they're pro scouts no more than I do. But like you'd think like just giving one of them a chance, or I don't know, would be maybe better than going to the European free agent well one more time and seeing what's out there than, Gustav Nyquist, who's basically going to be on the European circuit very, very soon if he wants to continue to play pro hockey.
I was surprised he got a pro contract. I really was, for just how bad. Moving on for agency, some trades. It was actually like a pretty good in terms of like trades, I feel like, in the offseason. Like there were some big names traded and things like that. Obviously we talked about the number one, Buffalo trading JJ Peterka to Utah. The return is what's kind of interesting to me. They send back Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan. Turning down, I heard at one point that Dobson might have been on the table from the Islanders. Russo reported the Wild offered Rossi plus. Like it sounds like they left a lot on the table too, because they were like apparently asphyxiated on this. We need a right shot D. I'm like, well, Dobson was there and he didn't like. So there must have been other pieces involved that they didn't want to part with. I don't know what the deal was with that. Kesselring,
that or just teams eventually just called their bluff and were just like,
something like that.
You're asking way too high, and you're gonna have to settle for something else because we're not gonna do business with you anymore. Like,
and like Kesselring's fine. He's probably like a number 4, and Josh Doan seems like a promising prospect. But it just feels like for the hype that was kind of around Peterka, like maybe Buffalo could have been better. Like I feel for that dang fan base, man. Like it is so poorly run.
Oh, it's because they just don't care.
They
don't care. The Bills make them their money.
Yeah.
Right. The Pagulas care about friggin' puppy night and custom friggin' jersey night. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. The obviously big trade that went down. Toronto signed. There's a sign and trade of Mitch Marner to Vegas. That signing $8 by $12 million. And then Toronto gets Nicholas Waugh. I don't know if he goes by Roy or Waugh. Goes to Toronto for basically getting Vegas an extra year. Marner getting that 8th year instead of the 7. And he'll be a fine like 3C for them behind Marner and Tavares. So pretty good numbers under the hood. So like not.
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot actually.
Yeah, so not a bad get for them. Like for a player they know they're going to lose no matter what, and to get a quality middle lineup player back was a nice piece of work for Toronto.
He also has a Calder Cup too, so he's got double rings.
Yeah. The other wrinkle with Vegas sounds like Alex Pietrangelo career could be done potentially.
Yeah.
Which I mean, sucks to hear a guy have to lose injury, but I freaking hate that guy.
By the way, Cosmo just hit the nail on the head. By the way, why we should have brought Burns home.
Yeah,
we should have brought Burns home. God damn it, Cosmo.
Emotional.
Good to see you, by the way.
No kidding. So we'll see how that plays out. So Vegas, I think, has improved up front, but you could maybe argue they've potentially gotten worse on the back end here. So because they also lost another trade that we'll get to, another one of their defensemen as well.
Vegas gonna Vegas though. It's crazy that like this is their MO. It's like even if they sign stars, like they're only gonna stay for maybe a few years. Like obviously there's been a few staples now, but it's like no, we're just gonna continue to make room to bring in the shiny new toy. The shiny new toy comes in. We continue to be competitive. We continue to friggin' stomp on Edmonton and lose to Edmonton but stomp on the Wild, and make the Kings wish that they play us more.
Yeah, no kidding. The other, I think, kind of like one of the other big trades, Keandre Miller, sent by the Rangers to the Hurricanes. Rangers get back Scott Morrow, a conditional first, and then a second-round pick, and then Miller extends at $8 by $7.5 million. So this sounds like a thing where the Rangers weren't ready to go long-term with him. They wanted to do a shorter deal. He wanted the long deal, asked for the trade. So I think trade that could pan out for both sides. Like I like the Hurricanes. I like Keandre Miller. I just think the Rangers were a mess this year, and you really can't read a lot into many of the younger players. Like I think you can read into Kreider being bad and Zibanejad being bad as like just they're getting older and losing a step. But these younger guys, I would not be worried about. And then they get back some good pieces. I think Scott Morrow is going to be a good defenseman in this league, probably like a 3 to 6 type of guy there. And then getting a first and second, depending what those turn into. Not a bad piece of work for a guy that didn't want to stay. Next one, our Minnesota Wild acquired Vladimir Tarasenko from the Detroit Red Wings for literally nothing, except for the legend future considerations. Tarasenko has 1 year left at $4.75 million, and the Wild are taking on the entire contract as part of it. So I think, as we saw earlier, Mateo here put in the chat, Tarasenko at $4.75 million, or called him NyQuil at $3.75. Not even a debate. And I would agree. I think this is definitely an upgrade over Nyquist, over Johansson. Maybe, had they not made the trade, wouldn't have hated seeing Liam Ogren maybe get another look there. But, I think Ogren could still prove and beat him out. But
there's going to be injuries. There's going to be injuries. This is a good depth piece to have, especially since it's 1 year. It's like, when was the last time he kind of lost his scoring touch a bit back in 2023. Maybe he finds that with Kirill, or maybe he finds that on a line with Boldy, or maybe he's just on that third line that's sheltered but has some looks with a Rossi, or maybe an Ek. You know what I mean? There are opportunities for him to actually to see some of the old Tarasenko. And has he slowed down? Yes, and it's not like he was ever the fastest skater. But he was a dangerous 30 goals in the bank every season goal scorer for a long time with the Blues on good teams and, middle of the pack teams. So, I like how he's not just a perimeter, roamer, Russian type of player. He will go north, south to where he needs to be to get passes to score or get in front of the net. And it's not like he was never a finesse skater, so it's not like he tries to weave around guys and he's scared to get hit. So I've always been a fan of Tarasenko. I've always liked his game, and he's got one of the best sound bites in NHL history.
Yeah, and I think
what's so rub off me?
And I'll have a little bit more on him in the analytics agenda, but I think my last piece, non-number wise, is the fact that he waived a no move to come here and talk to Kaprizov. He's bought into what they're doing.
Nice.
This is a guy, like I said, he's got 1 year left on his deal, so he's in a contract here. Could he go back and play in the KHL? Probably, but now I would imagine this is a guy who still thinks he has game to give. He's only 34, so he could still have 3 to 4 years left in him. So
yeah, I mean, and was part of the Panthers' first Stanley Cup. He came there at the end of the season, but he won a cup with the Panthers, so. Yeah. He's got playoff experience, both with the Blues and championship experience, right?
Yeah. So, and I think you're looking at it, a buddy for Kaprizov, another mentor for Danila Yurov. I think stuff like that maybe don't always think about, I think matters here too. So I liked the pickup, nothing flashy, nothing crazy, but as we'll get into a little bit later in the analytics segment, or we could talk about here too. I just think I think it was smart by Billy Guerin to not go out and spend a bunch of money on this mediocre free agent class. And he's, he didn't go out and add defensemen. He's giving opportunity to Zeev Buyum and to David Jiricek and to Carson Lambos and to Liam Ogren and Danila Yurov to play this year, which is refreshing, because I think a lot of us have had doubt about whether or not he would actually eventually let these young kids play. But, I think he's at this point now hey, I don't need to go out and spend this money just because I have it. Let's wait for a player worth going out and getting. And I think, a 1 year ad on a no risk player with not giving up any assets is a nice piece of business. And then I like adding Nico Sturm and another trainer. They traded Freddie Gaudreau to the Seattle Kraken and turned that pick into Adam Benyek.
I think he's probably one of the best players that they got in the draft.
Yeah, I've heard he'd be
highest upside is what everyone's saying.
Yeah, basically if he can overcome the size, this guy is legit. So
by the way, how rich is that? That they drafted, was he 5'8", 5'7"?
Yeah, they
5'8"?
Just drafted Marco Rossi again.
Except he's from the Czech Republic, not from Austria, but
true.
Z fell out of his chair, not laughing, just from some sort of physical reaction when they picked him. I think it was a mix of excitement and also what the fuck is happening.
And also of course this would be a Judd Brackett pick, but given it was just a lot of people oh, small undersized center. Wish we had one of those. But yeah, so I think not taking on bad contracts. Like I know they were reportedly interested in Charlie Coyle, but it sounds like in order to get Coyle, Colorado is requiring you to take Miles Wood, who's an analytical nightmare, like would have blocked other spots in the lineup. So like I think just pulling back on a lot of that stuff, like the JG Pajot rumors were like intriguing to me.
Just knowing that this wasn't the year. Draft wise, it wasn't worth, moving up. It wasn't worth getting back in the first round, right? Like they were just like, okay, this is where we're at right now. We have we've built a pretty good class of young guys coming up. Let's give some of them opportunities. Let's focus on hopefully knock on reshaping Iowa and just how the hell we're going to develop guys down there. Cause it's been an absolute mess for the last like 2-3 years. And yeah, I'm was perfectly fine with the lack of activity. I know a lot of people on Twitter weren't. Some people who I'd expect. There's just some people, man, who like I follow and I'm like, oh yeah, you're like normal. And then like free agency or like draft day hits and it's like no activity from the Wild, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, like okay, explain yourself. Oh, I didn't mean it was a bad thing. It's like, okay.
You just want them to do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. Like, I don't get it. But yeah, I just think, and now it lets you potentially in season, if Tage Thompson or Alex Tuck are like, hey, we want the fuck out of Buffalo. Like, get us out of here. We suck. Like, you can now play in those trades. If, Artemi Panarin, like, if New York sucks the deadline, or if he gets unhappy, or if he's available next summer, like, that's a player you could, he's a unrestricted free agent after this.
We're building, mini freaking Chelia Binks up in this bitch here in Minnesota. So let's bring them all. Let's bring all the Russians here.
So like, I think like that's kind of the cool stuff, right? Like they can play in those types of deals now. And I would much rather sink $7+ million into that type of player than to overspend in free agency. So
and just bank on some, and just bank on, if Ogren does get reps because of injuries, which he's the next one up, right? Mm-hmm. Riley Height's going to be, he's going to be in Iowa unless he absolutely blows everyone's socks off in training camp. Even then, he'll get a few games before I imagine the dust will settle, because we've seen that same song and dance before. There's always sometimes some prospects who look really, really good out of camp, and then just once the season starts, it's like, okay, yeah, you are separated from the pack.
Right.
Ogren's going to be the next one up. I'm glad Billy Guerin has noticed that, or just management has noticed that. And that's with Tarasenko or without Tarasenko, he's going to get games. And then Yurov, like I'm sure that there's going to be some growing pains, but for the most part, I think the Wild are banking that this guy's basically just like a free free agent signing that we were talking about, except like he's one of ours and we've just been waiting on him for a little while.
Yeah. I'm excited. Like, I think it was a good overall offseason, and like, I still maintain that the Wild, like, they got to get over the hump this year. Like, that still should be the floor. But I think at one point he went on K-Fan and basically said, like, I think we're a better team than we were last year. And like, I would agree. Like, Tarasenko is an upgrade over Johansson. Like, your third line being, Hartman,
Johansson's still there, but
yeah, but like he's making
$1
million, and like your third line is now Hartman, Foligno, and whether that ends up being Yurov or Johansson or Trenyan or whoever it ends up being, like that's an upgrade. And then like I think they're going to be, as long as they can stay healthy, that's the key. And with Brodin already being hurt, not a great start, but nonetheless.
But I like how it's young guys who are coming in to be key depth pieces, or if they come in and look great, then it's like, okay, you got Tarasenko and Johansson as your depth pieces. Okay. And Hartman being able to go up and down, assuming he's not injured, like that's fine. That's fine as well. I like that. I feel like there's a little bit more insulation with the depth going into this year, or I'm more comfortable with the insulation of the depth going into this year. And it helped them last year, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, no, I just hope they're not injured this year, because that'll be 2 fucking years in a row where this team is just like hanging on by a thread. One year was bad. This year they hung on, but anyways.
Yeah. Moving on, the Islanders, we mentioned this one. They trade Noah Dobson to the Montreal Canadiens for Emil Heineman, picks 16 and 17 in the draft. They turn those into Victor Eklund and Kashan Aitchison.
I mean, what a draft for the Islanders.
Yeah,
like,
and
they got all the best guys.
Well, like, and I think like Eklund and Aitchison and a lot of like mocks were like top 10 picks. So to get Schaefer and then those two, like real nice piece of work for them. And then Montreal, who I think has really become a better team in the past like 2-3 years.
Well, going in, so last summer, their GM was like, I'm not mad we didn't make the playoffs, but like this next year is time. They took that next step up. Lane Hudson is an absolute stud.
You got Demidov in the mix now. You add Noah
Dobson.
You have guys like Caulfield, Suzuki, like taking those next steps. Like I think they're going to be.
And it's like Newhook's kind of been buried, but like he's still a very talented guy, right? And he's like 24. Man, that team is gonna be terrifying. Like
I'm excited to watch the Canadians, and like just like their fans like always get into it. They're passionate, so
because they were like good for a long time. They weren't necessarily great, but like they were good for a long time. Even after Subban was like they still were they were still like hanging
Price,
there,
right? Buchanan, Shea Weber, like
they had a lot. They hung around for a while before finally they the bottom fell out from under them. And it's going to be cool seeing. And again, I thrive on like hating on Toronto and Montreal being the resident Canadian here, but like I would way rather root for Montreal than the Maple Leafs. And like I can appreciate what Montreal is doing. I'm a fan of St. Louis. I'm a fan of Alex Burrows, who's been crushing it in Laval, and you just know they're prepping him to come up. Like he'll be an assistant coach again soon, and then eventually he'll take over Marty, and Marty will move into management. Like that's how it's going to go. And like, I am a huge Alex Burrows fan, obviously. So I like everything Montreal's doing there. It's poor Z, man. Boston with just a shit draft, with the shit free agency. And now Montreal is going to be stomping on them soon with a bunch of young guys.
Yep.
Oh, damn.
Price you pay for winning cups. Next trade here on our list. The Philadelphia Flyers buy low and get Trevor Zegras in exchange for Ryan Poehling and pick 45, which turned into Eric Nielsen.
Good trade. Poehling is what he is at this point.
Yeah. And like, I think the Flyers get the upside here, but I think, Anaheim, I think did a good job. Like I like Poehling. He's a good, like bottom six center, like really good underlying defensive numbers, like better than I think.
Big body too.
Yeah. So, and Minnesota native. So like obviously Zegras flashes, but like, does he work with Tocchet? We'll see.
Yeah, Tocchet will either make or break him. Better than Torts, though. Like, could you imagine Zegras under Torts? Oh my God, Torts would chew him up and spit him out.
That would not be good. Russo did have the new Iowa Wild head coach, former Ducks coach, really blanking on the guy's name, Greg Cronin, on his radio show, I believe last week. And Cronin, I will say, did speak pretty highly of Zegras in terms of kind of buying into some of the things they wanted him to work on. So we'll see. Like I like this trade for both teams. I think, Anaheim felt they were maybe not to jump too far ahead, but I think probably feels set down the middle right now and felt like that was a guy they could move on from. So in the Central Division, we go next. The Blues acquire Logan Mailloux from the Canadians. They send back Zach Bolduc. Like that's another trade I love from the Canadians. I think Bolduc is going to be a good like middle six guy for them next year, like young. Mailloux, obviously it is not a big fan of his past and being a racist and ableist asshole. But Blues apparently think pretty highly of him. It sounds like they plan to, despite his lack of NHL experience, plan to slot him right into their top 4, I guess.
Yeah, he only has 8 games.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're apparently like, we love this guy. He's going to go right in the top 4. Which, like, if you look at the St. Louis Blues blue line, it's really funny. It's like 4 guys over the age of like 34, and then Broberg and now Mailloux.
Yeah.
So interesting there.
That was Marc Bergevin's last big bang move in Montreal, is drafting Mailloux.
Well, and it sounds
first round.
And what I had heard is that they like St. Louis apparently wanted to draft him, but then did not when he said, "I don't want to be drafted."
Yeah.
So like that's how much they apparently think of him. So.
Marc Bergevin. That was such a fun stream, man. We were all live for that. It's somewhere. If you go back to, I think that was like our second or third draft show that we did. It's in the live section on our YouTube channel.
I remember all being like absolutely just like shocked, like what?
Dude, Z's reaction was the best. Someone timestamped. I think Dan Bradley like timestamped it too. So it's worth checking out. It was awesome.
Another trade for the Leafs, minor one, but I liked it from them. They get Matthias Michelli from Utah, just giving up a 2027 third. Michelli, I think, was like a good middle six type of forward. Like I was like, he kind of stood out a little bit when I watched him playing against the Wild in Utah last year. So, he's going to get to play with either Tavares or Matthews or whoever. So should have a good opportunity there. Predators looking to try to get better somehow. They get Nick Hague from Vegas, so Vegas loses Hague and Pietrangelo. They send Colton Sissons and Jeremy Lazon and a 3rd-round pick in exchange for that deal. So
Colton Sissons finally on the move, dude. Thought he was going to be a forever Nashville Predator because he signed that 7-year deal at like
it was like 7 by say 2 years. It's just a weird ass.
Yeah, well, it's because he's like, I just want to stay in Nashville. Yeah. I don't want to leave. And they're like, okay, we're all right with this. And
then Lazon, is he from that Boston like year where they drafted all like the wrong guys at 3? And it was like
I believe so.
I think that was him, and then a 3rd-round pick. So I still know Nashville's trying to do like I think I was looking at their roster today, and they should just mail it in. Like you're old, and their young players are all very meh. Yeah. But who knows? Barry Trotz after a rough start there. We talked about the Declan Chisholm trade. The Wild traded away pick 180 in that deal as well. That turned into Aaron Dahlqvist. And then the Wild got the rights to Chase Prisky and pick number 123, which turned into Carter Klippenstein or Klippenstein. Prisky's still an unrestricted free agent. It doesn't sound like, that looks right. It looks right. But yeah, so I don't know. Like Prisky, it sounds like they're maybe interested in signing him, but I would guess that would have happened by now. The Red Wings finally get John Gibson out of Anaheim. They send back Peter Mrazek, a 2026 4th and a 2027 2nd-round pick. So John Gibson, I feel like, is rumored to be getting traded every offseason. That would have been a good move for Edmonton to make, but obviously that was too difficult for them to do for some reason.
By the way, Brett, you weren't completely off. It was in the 2015 draft. He was just their 2nd-round pick.
Oh, his 2nd-round pick. Okay.
Yeah. So you weren't just So then that's 2015. Oof.
Yeah.
In a draft, like they literally picked like the only bad players. Not all. I'm exaggerating a bit, but
like probably one of the greatest draft classes we've ever seen, and Boston managed to completely fumble it.
Yeah, exactly. Not once, not twice, but with like three really good picks.
Yeah. Blue Jackets. I talked a little bit about this one. They get Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood from Colorado, who sends back Gavin Brindley, pick 77, which turned into Francesco Delelce. I think I probably butchered that, in a conditional 2027 2nd-round pick. So Blue Jackets, again, like I love that for them. Like I really want them and Dean Ellison to take that next step. It was cool to see what they did last year and hoping they can build on that. And Charlie Coyle, probably a fine ad for their 3rd-line center there. And then we did talk about this final one here. Wild trade Freddie Gaudreau to Seattle for pick 102, turned into Adam Benyek. We talked about how we're excited for that, but
I mean, they basically just swapped Gaudreau. If you think about it, if you take a step outside the bubble, they swapped Gaudreau for Sturm. They had a bottom 6 guy for a friggin' face-off machine in Sturm. And
we traded Freddie Gaudreau for Adam Benyek and Nico Sturm. That's
pretty much.
Like that's a great freaking trade.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nico Sturm, let's talk about him in this week's analytics agenda. I don't know if we have the clip.
I have this one.
I just want to say, Puck, your opinion.
It's enough. I think it fits. But yeah, like obviously, like really biased by this signing because Nico Sturm is like one of my all-time favorite players. Really excited the Wild brought him back. If you haven't listened to it, you can go back on my timeline, find the link, or go to the K-Fans podcast. But he had a really good interview prior to free agency with Russo on K-Fan and just basically talked about why he left the Wild a couple years back when he did. And basically, like at that point, he was 26. He thought he could be more than a 4th-line center, which is where the Wild had him penciled in. And he's like, I want to go try elsewhere and see what happens. And basically, since then, he's learned like, hey, I've gotten 2 cups. I've learned that I am not anything more than a 4th-line center, but I value my role as a 4th-line center. I want to be the best that there is at and do my role and do it well. He's like, I love my time in Minnesota. He lives here in the offseason. His fiance is from here. So spoke like glowingly about the Wild and said, like, love to come back, comes back. And I think like you just look at like you and I obviously raved last year about the improvement in Freddie Gaudreau, but I think a lot of the things that he missed on last year is kind of that's the gap that Nico Sturm fills. He is 58.1% in the faceoff dot over the last 3 seasons. That is 5th in the NHL in that time span, only behind Jamie Benn, Claude Giroux, John Tavares, and Vincent Trocheck. Like pretty darn good. his career faceoff win percentage on the penalty kill over 50%. So he'll be able to help there. As you can see from the card on screen here, courtesy of advancedhockeystats.com and JFresh Hockey, like pretty like fourth liner looking numbers, like nothing crazy, but does draw some penalties, can create a little bit on offense, decent defensive player, can help out on the PK. I think he's just going to be like, I think he's really going to fit into a spot that's been missing for the Wild. And I think his ability to win draws in the penalty kill is going to be so big, because I think one area that the Wild PK was really good on last year was once the puck got out, they made it really hard for teams to get back in and get set up. And I think just being able to get that initial clear off a face-off win is going to help that a ton. So excited to see kind of the impact that he can make there.
How's his skating now?
I think he's still a really, really good skater. Like he's
like
smooth, really
down
smooth
too
skater.
much.
Yeah, like he's like incredibly like super into his fitness. Like I think he's kind of looked at in a similar way to like Joel Eriksson Ek, like just an absolute menace in the gym, like Mr. September type. So it should be a nice competition again between Ek and Sturm for who's gonna be Mr. September this year.
All right. Yeah, you went over some of these numbers as well.
Yep. And so like there's some areas that he really excels in, like on a microstat level, really big into the forecheck, puck retrievals defensively, not so much breaking or carrying it out, but like getting back in the defensive zone, helping out and starting the breakout. So yeah, again, I just think fills a lot of the gaps, and I think we'll maybe play a little bit more of that like grittier physical style I think that the Wild want to see. I mean, I don't want to necessarily want a fourth line forecheck coming at me that's Sturm, Trenyan, and whether it's
Foligno or
Johansson or Foligno or Hartman or Ogren, like that's going to be like, it's a good fourth line. So I'll take that. And then next up here, we talked a little bit about Tarasenko. So kind of got our thoughts on the trade, but I mean, look at the numbers under the hood with the analytics. Like they're not bad. You know, upper percentiles and like a lot of the major offensive categories, able to contribute on the power play, doesn't kill penalties, playing against pretty like bit of the lineup competition overall. And then if you go like the micro stat sheet, this is where I think where it's kind of interesting, because I think this is where you see kind of where he fell short in Detroit last year. He just wasn't getting quality shots off. And I think that was maybe less on him and more on just not having the right guys around him. But I think you look at some of the areas that he excelled, primary assists, chance assists, high danger passes, like getting pucks into dangerous areas. And whether Tarasenko ends up playing with, it's going to probably either be with Boldy or Kaprizov. One of those two is likely going to be across from him on those top two lines. Like his ability to get those two into other danger areas, like we see it from Rossi, we see it from Zuccarello, and we didn't see it from Johansson or whoever the fuck else has played on, you know, with Boldy throughout the years, basically since Fiala left. So like that's where I'm excited to see, like, I feel like the Wild can better use the talents, and I think his strengths match with the role that he's going to be playing. So really excited to see kind of what he can do. You know, what you know, if it is, you know, maybe it's he shifts from a 30 goal scorer to maybe he's a 40 assist guy. Like maybe he is putting pucks on tees for Boldy and Kaprizov, you know, or it's the other way around. Maybe he rediscovers some of that scoring touch. And I think also being able to like add another weapon to your second, because he probably will play second power play. But again, to your case, if there's an injury, he might be the first one bumped up as well. So I'm really pumped for him.
Yeah, I mean, as far as depth players go, like this is a better go-to depth option than Johansson. So
absolutely.
Or as much as I love Freddie Gaudreau, or even a Gaudreau who proved to be capable of it, and hey, he helped the Wild in a trade. So there you go. There you go. All right, we did have a question here, and it's a perfect segue into the last part of the show. What do you think is an either realistic trade value or contract for Marco Rossi? And at this point, I mean, I feel like everybody who does like a Wild show, or even every fan, has like talked about the various endless options that seemingly the Minnesota Wild and, you know, cannot just pick. So let's get into it, Brett, because we got a lot of notes here.
Yeah. So I think just to like kind of answer the question about what is like the contract value, I think they maintain him as camp. They want 7x7. And I would say if they go on a bridge, I'd say they're probably looking north of 6 on like a 2 to 3 year deal with the guarantee that they know he's playing in the top 6. So that's
or
kind
that they're trading you immediately.
Yeah. As far as like his trade value, like I think what's rumored that the Wild have been asking asking for is reasonable. Like an equivalent player, whether it's a center or a wing, like under 25, has shown they can produce in the NHL, have a lot of upside. Like, so and if not that, I think I would say like first, second, third, or equivalent prospect. Although I'd rather have the skater, which I think Guerin would too if he were to move him, or be able to, or get assets back he can flip in a subsequent trade. And I think that's why a lot of this is held up right now, is they haven't seen eye to eye on the contract, and they haven't found what they like in a trade. So, I mean, moving him to wing,
I just don't think that's like solves any of their issues.
Correct. Like unless your reasoning is to get Urov in at center, but now you have Tarasenko with Hartman and Foligno. Does that really like? I think then you're going to get Detroit Tarasenko at that point. I think where you're not going to get much. So it creates a lot of wrinkles.
Right now, I just don't think he's going to be part of this team the whole year. I think whatever deal they land on, it's going to be like, okay, that's my deal, and teams will be like, okay, now we don't have to deal with signing him. We know what the values. We know how much he makes, and we can proceed from there. Or maybe this becomes like a Pavel Bure situation where like, okay, we're butting heads on contract shit, but new year, new team ish. We'll have a fresh start. But just the way that he was deployed in the playoffs, despite producing, I just don't think Hines and Guerin, who seem stubborn, are going to budge.
Yeah.
Congrats both of your center.
Yeah. So the other thing I was curious about, and Russo had brought this up, I can't remember if it was on one of his podcasts or his radio, just like kind of taking a look at, like Bill Guerin came out and mentioned, like, if anyone offer sheets Rossi, we're going to match it, which I think is easy to scoff at. Go, yeah, you're just saying that. But I was like, but maybe he actually is like serious about it, because what I did today, I went and looked through, if we assume that he wants the 7x7 he's been asking for, that's going to require, in order to get offer sheeted, a first round pick and a third round pick in next year's draft that has to be yours. So it can't be one that you traded or acquired. It has to
next
be
year's
yours.
draft is stacked.
Yeah, like it's the Gavin McKenna draft.
Sweepstakes. Like, sweepstakes.
Like he's a generational talent. There's some content on here. He just agreed to go to Penn State, committed there next year, so you can go watch
700,000 big ones to go to college hockey, baby.
Yeah,
not the London Knights.
So I believe Hoppy and Z did a little segment on that you can check out on the channel if you want more on that. But anyway, so yeah, like to your point, like you need to have first and the third, be willing to part with the first and the third to get him. And so I kind of went team by team through that and just kind of decided, like, could this be realistic or not? The first team that had the picks, Anaheim Ducks. Now they
don't need a center.
And that's where they're at. They have Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, who's an RFA. I believe it's Dylan Strome that's there. And then just signed Mikhail Granlund 3x7. Maybe not guaranteed he'll be at center. He could end up on the wing. I do not see them at all being interested in signing Rossi at $7 million. Maybe if they hadn't signed Granlund, maybe they're interested in that scenario. But they did. The only other like wrinkle, which I think maybe this is a trade candidate if McTavish and the Ducks can't see eye to eye, and if the Wild value him and Anaheim has interest, like there'd be a lot of factors, but that's like the only world where I even see that remotely likely.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're an option. Next on the list, this is a team I do think would have the potential to offer sheet, and that's Boston. Right now down the middle, they have Elias Lindholm, Pavel Zacha, and they just signed Sean Corrali, and then also have a youngster in John Beecher. So like the fit is there. Like they could use a guy like Rossi, but I think in the same breath, to your point, they're probably going to be bad this year and probably don't want to lose an unprotected first. Yeah. That could potentially be a lottery pick for Gavin McKenna. So they're one of the higher potential, but I just don't see it happening. Buffalo could do it, but the Wild offered him Paterka. They didn't take it, so I doubt they'd put in an offer sheet for him. Another one I think that could be interesting and like a real fit would be Calgary. Right now, their middle is Nazem Kadri, Mikhail Backlund, who's I think now like 34 or 35 years old.
36.
36.
Still like putting up plus 30 points though, which is what I love about Backlund. He just has been quietly putting up like 30 points season. Literally, he hasn't even hit 40. 37 was just quietly putting up like just north of 30 points since 2010.
He's just like the like penultimate 3 seed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I think there's a fit there because I think like Rossi's an upgrade over Backlund. He's an upgrade over Frost. They have the picks. They have the cap space. They're in a spot where they probably would like to improve their team without giving up assets. So maybe they're one that you do it. I think maybe they're also that could maybe trade. I would bet you the Wild would have potential interest in Nazem Kadri. I just don't know if you want to be paying him at 34 for 4 more years at $7 million a year. When realistically, you're maybe getting 1 to 2 more top 6 seasons. So they're a team that
a good player, but it's like you're getting 2 top years out of them.
Yeah, and they are the one team though. I would think if they just went straight offer sheet, I think Minnesota would maybe consider matching it just because that first round pick is probably going to be in the mushy middle. So it's probably worth if you at that point to match. But yeah. Next one's here. Chicago. Right now they have Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, and Oliver Moore down the middle. But I just think much like Boston, Chicago's going to be bad again. And I think they're going to want that first round pick for the shot at McKenna. So I don't see that happening there. Columbus, I think they're probably set another team that's just set down the middle with Monahan, Fantilli, just having added Charlie Coyle, and Cole Sillinger, who I think they have on the wing, can also fill in there. So maybe if they wanted to trade one of those players, like whether that's Fantilli or Sillinger, if those became available, maybe. But yeah.
Yo, shout out to Cameron Myers for the $5 donation. Yo, thank you, Cameron. Says, I want heavy minutes for Yurov. Russo acts like that's not what's going to happen. I won't survive this mismanagement and coaching. Yeah, what's funny is I hear on Russo's radio show, it's same thing as what you're saying there, Cameron, but then he comes on like Fellowship of the Rink and he's like, oh yeah, like Yurov's going to get time. Why wouldn't Yurov get time? So I think maybe Russo's just bored right now and he's just kind of I don't know, causing some ruckus. I don't know, but I imagine he's getting time. Like we kind of talked about in the opening segment, like they're not going to bury him in the bottom 6. They're going to put Hartman down there. They want this kid to succeed. I mean, that's from my understanding, that's the vibe that I've been getting. But but I did pick up on, I don't know if it was Russo's last radio show, but yeah. Maybe he was just in a bad mood that day. He was just a little pessimistic that day. I'm not sure. But thank you so much for the $5.
Yeah, we appreciate that for sure. Yeah, and like, I don't know. I just think the expectations for Yurov need to be tempered a little bit. Like, I'm really excited for Yurov, but like, I don't think this is going to be a Kaprizov situation where he comes in right away, is ready to dominate. I think
he's younger too.
Yeah, and I think he will probably start the season probably as the 13th forward. That way they keep with the NHL, so you don't lose. Hey, if he sent him down the AHL, he could go back to the KHL, and then you had that whole mess of at that point, if you ticked him off, does he want out? Does he want to stay in the KHL? Like that's a big risk there. So I think that's why
he's got an out clause for his entire rookie deal, by the way, which is crazy.
Yeah. So I
think I don't recall ever seeing that.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. But again, I think to your point, like there will be injuries. This is the Minnesota Wild forward group. I think to your point,
it's just the NHL. Like there's just going to be injuries, and like I see him as a center. I don't know. They might ease him in as a wing, but I do think that they're going to give him some minutes to be like, welcome to the NHL. This is center in the NHL.
Yep.
Like we have expectations for you to dominate in this role. If you don't, well, there's still I still think that they value his game enough where he will become a wing, but like I don't know. If he puts 30 points up this season, I'll be happy. Anything more than that, I think it's like, all right, let's go. We're cooking.
Agreed. Yep.
See, I disagree, Jar. I wholeheartedly disagree. But agree to disagree.
Yeah. He's bad on faceoffs, but he plays the two-way game that you need to be a center in the NHL. It's kind of how I look at it. Detroit was the next team on the list. Right now they have Larkin, Marco Kasper, and JT Compher already down the middle, and they also have Danielson in the AHL. Like, if at some point Dylan Larkin wanted to get out, or like if Marco Kasper maybe became available, like maybe those are guys the Wild would consider in a trade. But again, I don't see them offer sheeting. I think they have enough depth down the middle than to add Rossi at $7 million. The next one I have down here, to me, won't do it, but it's potential, and that's the Los Angeles Kings. So right now, their centers are Kopitar, Quentin Byfield, and then Philip Deneau. Kopitar is on the final year left of his deal. Deneau has one more year after this. Where it gets tricky for the Wild, that pick, very likely a later pick, like in the 20s, like LA has high aspirations to be good. And LA needs to extend some big names. They have to pay Adrian Kempe. They have to pay Brant Clark. So part of me just wonders, do you believe that Byfield can be a 1? In that case, are you okay with Rossi and Deneau as your 2-3? Like, there's a lot of like longer play. I think they would definitely want it for like this year or next year, but beyond that is where it gets a little gray for me, but I wouldn't rule them out. Montreal, as it stands, they don't have enough cap space. They'll reportedly being in the mix for a number 2 center, but they have like the Carey Price LTIR stuff, so I don't know how that totally affects their actual cap space, but I just don't see that one as likely. It sounds like they're not interested either from what I've heard. This next team is one I think is probably the most likely, and that's the Nashville Predators. Their centers are currently Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, and Eric Halla. I think at this point he's probably an upgrade over O'Reilly. He's definitely an upgrade over Halla. O'Reilly has 2 years left on his deal. Stamkos has 3. Halla in the final year of his deal. They don't really have a lot of center prospects cooking at all. So I think if you're the Wild, like I would think this is a team that's going to miss the playoffs. So it's going to be a lottery pick. Maybe not a great one. Could be like in that 10 to 13 range, but it still gives you a chance and gives you a pretty good return on Rossi in that sense. But do you want to let him go to a divisional team? I think is kind of where the other pause is for the Wild. So I think they're the most likely, just given need, given what they'd be giving up, where he fits into the lineup. I could see that as a potential spot. So they'd be the one that actually like have me a little worried.
Yeah.
Because I want Rossi to, even at this point, if it's a 2-year deal, I want him extended. New Jersey is next on the list, but another team that's pretty set down the middle with Hughes, Heischer, and Mercer. If somehow one of those guys became available in a trade and Rossi could be the piece, maybe that's there. But like I mentioned before, New Jersey has to pay Luke Hughes still. And it sounds like there is, if there were the chance that Quinn Hughes doesn't go back to Vancouver, you could bet they would like to unite all 3 of them in New Jersey and would probably pay whatever.
And Kovalchuk's money no longer on the books.
There you go.
I think it was only like $150,000 at this point.
Yeah. So that's one I think doesn't really make sense. Islanders, they already have Bo Horvat and Matt Barzal as their 1C and 2C. They are both under contract for 6 more years at a combined $17.65 million.
Yeah.
So even though they have Pajot as the 3C entering the last year of his deal, who apparently the Wild had interest in, but I think Nico Sturm has filled the role that they would have kind of penciled him into, and they probably don't view him at this point in his career as a number 2 center. So unless one of Barzal or Horvat became available in the trade market, I would guess that this isn't a fit here with the Islanders either. Other New York teams, all 3 New York teams potential here, but another one I don't think is likely, the Rangers. Right now they have Trocheck, Miller, and Zibanejad up the middle. They're all under contract for at least another 4 years. I would guess same thing here with some of these others. I think if a JT Miller or Vinny Trocheck became available on the trade market, the Wild probably have interest in that, but I just don't think that's going to happen. And to top that all off, I do not believe the Rangers have $7 million in cap space to do that. Next one here, Philadelphia. They have Couturier for 5 more years, Noah Cates for 4 more years, and just signed Zegras. So unless Zegras is going to the wing, I don't see that happening. It sounds like at one point that the Flyers were interested in Rossi in the offseason, but I would guess with the Zegras addition, they're probably off of that now.
Dude, we got another $5 donation. Shout out to Jarl Jonah, by the way. Jarl Jonah. Weird idea. Thoughts on possible trading Brodin? I mean, at this point, man, he's a Band-Aid. Brett and I are like the biggest Brodin fans. Like, I think he's one of the best skaters, or was one of the best skaters in the National Hockey League. And you don't have to be the fastest skater to be the best skater. Definitely Quinn Hughes is taking that throne now. But as one of the only guys who skating backwards could keep up with and stay on Connor McDavid, it was just incredible. I've been a fan of Brodin since his pairing with Dumba days, and I feel like I'm living in the past a little bit here because like I don't want them to move on from him. I'm like, oh no, there's still a little bit left, and it's like, yeah, when he's healthy, there's gas left in the tank because he's still relatively young, but he's just a band-aid at this point. And I hate to admit it because like I'm the biggest Brodin defender, but like if there's someone who wants him, I mean, you got to entertain that trade at this point, especially with some of these younger defensemen coming up and like the Wild just reshaping the defense in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I think like outside of Rossi, if he's healthy, he's probably your best trade asset. But again, I think much like trading Rossi, like how are you replacing it? Like someday, yes, hopefully Zeev Buium is that replacement, but Zeev Buium is not Jonas Brodin right now, and Carson Lambos is not Jonas Brodin either. So like that's where it gets tricky. Like, you know, maybe if it's in a trade that lands you upgrade over Rossi, now do you move Rossi for a defenseman? Like there's dominoes that fall there. We talked about this more on the last episode of Wildly Informed. Like I broke down like why I'd be in favor of a Brodin trade. At the time it was replacing him with Gavrikov in free agency, but if you want some more on that answer, check out the last show. Let's see. Talked about Philly, Pittsburgh, like another spot that makes a lot of sense. Like given what they have down the middle right now, it's Crosby and Malkin.
But like Malkin's done after this year. Crosby, who knows when Malkin leaves, what his plan is. Like,
but like they're going to be so bad this year. Like you can bet that. Oh no, we're losing Sid and Malkin. Dang, Gavin McKenna. Oh well.
Well, and they're like Carlson's very much in play to be moved again. Letang's just probably going to retire there, but like, Letang ain't single-handedly helping this team win games, you know.
So I just like, I think that there's a trade that comes up with Pittsburgh, like maybe they're in the mix that way, but there's no way they offer sheet.
No.
St. Louis was next up on the list, so they could maybe use another center. Their second line center right now is Braden Shen, who I believe has 3 more years left on his deal, but kind of on the wrong side of 30 now. His game's declining. We did talk earlier. They just added Pius Suter, and they maybe have interest in adding, but they were going to have to pay. So they have pending free agents, I think, between this year and next year in Dylan Holloway, Jake Neighbors, Torpchenko, Jimmy Snuggerud, and Philip Broberg. So like they have a lot of guys they're going to need to pay. And with it being in the division, again, I don't see either side doing it. Personally, Utah up next, staying in the division again. My guess is they'd have interest. Their second line center, I believe, right now is Barrett Hayton, but they only has $6.657 million in cap space, and I think at that price, the Wild probably match. So maybe Utah believes Jack McBain, who they extended, can be like maybe fill in as like a second line center. I don't know, but unless they find a way to clear cap to get him to that $7 million number in play, but I would say probably won't happen. And then finally, Winnipeg. I think Rossi becomes the best center on the team behind Scheifele if he were to go there. If the Jets keep Gabe Vilardi on the wing, he can play center as well.
I think the Jets actually kind of works. To be honest.
Yeah, so like they're the ones I'm on the fence with. They also currently have $19.898 million in cap space, but that's before extending Vilardi, Morgan Barron, Dylan Sandberg, and Luke Shen are all.
You think it's going to cost $19 million?
Well, that's between this year and next year, I think. But they also need to extend beyond this year Cole Perfetti and Kyle Connor, who I imagine both of those are going to be quite expensive. They just signed Jonathan Toews, whose cap hit is driven by incentives, so they have to account for that. So I think if the Jets can figure out a lot of these numbers and they can be like, hey, we can.
I mean, they were prepared to give Ehlers what he wanted, right? So like they clearly could make the money work, and especially at a way lower rate because like they were going to pay Ehlers more probably. So
yeah, so I think
I could see it working if who did they bring in again that we were ripping on
Nyquist, yeah.
If they're really like, oof, this was bad, like they could maybe circle back in a trade maybe.
Yeah. So like they're interesting to me. I just think it would take a while for that to happen. I think that to figure out some other extensions and role fits and stuff for like that first. But yeah, so like to me, most likely still feels like Nashville. I would throw Calgary in the mix. I'd throw Utah in the mix, and I think if they're Winnipeg in the mix, like those would probably be the 4 or 5 that I would think it's possible to. But I think Minnesota matches at least probably 3 out of the 5 of those. So
yeah.
we'll see.
And who said it in the chat here? Keith. He's like, only 12 total offer sheets transactions in the last 20 years, so not very common. No, and shout out to Brett here. He like wrote out this whole list, and we also talked about like trade opportunities as well. We pretty much went over the entire league. Brett pretty much went over the entire league here. So like, it's one of those things where it's like the Wild right now may just have to bite the bullet, pay him whatever it is, bridge long term, and then if they don't want to keep him, entertain a trade during the season. He's still young, he's still producing. He's not going to fall off a cliff this season, because we even saw a motivated Rossi on any line can produce. So there'll be interest.
Yeah. So the final thing I want to do on the show, we went a little longer than we wanted, but that's okay. People hopefully like you are starving for hockey content in the
and we usually have for the I'm pulling back the curtains here for the chat and everyone listening on the podcast. We usually have like 3 or 4 pages of notes. Brett prepared, and I say Brett because like I didn't add anything, but just get the stream set up. It's 6 to 7 pages of notes here today, guys.
That is a lot, but a lot of it's like just reiterating stuff that's already out there. But the last thing I want to talk about is just kind of like, what do you think the opening night lineup is, knowing one that Brodin is probably not playing would be like the one.
Well, I mean, that's the Carson Lambos is now the talk of the town. Look, if Jiricek is healthy, he's in there, right? He's in there. I think I want to see Lambos succeed, and I think that we should throw him in the fire at least 1 point soon to see if there's anything there, if there's any of that Damon Hunt fire that we saw once upon a time, Right. But so if Jiricek's there, get him in. Bogosian, unfortunately, is going to be part of the equation, so bury him on the last pairing.
Well, I think that's interesting part, because I think they want Jiricek on the right side, where if you have Brodin hurt, you bump up Buium. So like I have it right now. I have the first pairing as Middleton Faber, second pairing as Buium Spurgeon, because like what better way to get a guy acclimated to the NHL than putting him with Jared Spurgeon, who can literally carry a donkey on his back and still put up good numbers. And then I have Jiricek penciled in on my third pair right D, because I think that's his spot. What got interesting for me is now who fills that lefty spot. Like I don't remember Bogosian playing a ton on his offside last year. I think he played mostly on the right side, a little bit on the left. But like, I think it's probably him. But like, maybe if Lambos has a really impressive camp because it's the left side, and if Jiricek ends up beating out Bogosian on the right side, like maybe that's the flip. Right now, I have Bogosian there on his offside because I just think that's what my gut says. The Wild aren't going in with 3 basically first-year NHLers on their blue line. I just don't see that as likely, but I'm not ruling it out as impossible.
Yeah, no, for sure. Cosmo saying people forget the Lambos. Or how good Lambos was in his World Junior run. Watch his draft again. He was a steal. What happened in Iowa was a big question mark. I don't even think it's a question mark anymore. I think just like the development staff in Iowa are trash. And I think that's been magnified in the last couple of years. So I think it's less about the player, because we've kind of seen a halt in development with a few guys where we're like, oh shit, like, and maybe it's just the bad luck all around, but I don't know, personally, and this is not Wild bias, is not Canucks bias. I've seen it. Like Judd Brackett, he picks the right guys for the most part. Every pro scout's going to miss on a few, right? But for the most part, he'll fill the cabinet, and then it's up to the organization to develop them, right? And
agreed.
We haven't really seen much come out of Iowa, so. Especially
defensively, I think like we obviously just saw like Ryan O'Rourke not qualified attendant, like
and that was another guy that I was like, hey, like he will at least be a staple in Iowa, even if he never gets called. Up
people
to
like
thought
regularly. Like his floor was like 6'7", like 6'7" defenseman, like just this rugged old time. Yeah.
Oh, and watch, he's gonna bounce back and get NHL games. No, I'm not saying a full timer, but he's gonna like somewhere. Of course he is, Brett. Like that's just the Wild way, right?
Well, and I hope he does. Honestly, like maybe it's a wake up call to like whatever your development process is needs work. Moving on to the forward lines, like these were hard. Like thinking about like
there's options.
What I want to happen versus what I think will happen, And so I did it as what I think will happen. First line, I went a little unique. So I went with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. Then I went Eriksson Ek down the middle. I think they just want that tougher matchup, maybe that little bit more size on the forecheck, and then allow you like more of a secondary threat line that you can put with Boldy and Rossi, and then adding Tarasenko. So you kind of have the two main, your 60-point guys with Kaprizov, Zuccarello on the first line, and then Rossi, Boldy second line, and then guys you hope, like, if put in the right situation with Tarasenko and Eriksson Ek, that they could work out. It's like that's what I'm leaning will happen, but like really the wings could be anywhere. Like it could be, they go back to the super line with Boldy, Ek, and Kaprizov, and then it's Zuccarello, Rossi, Tarasenko. Like, I don't know. Like there are a lot of options, or maybe it's Tarasenko with Kaprizov, and then it's Zuccarello with Boldy, Rossi. I don't know. There's a lot of ways it could go.
We're gonna see a friggin' blender in the first like 2-3 weeks. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like a unique thing the Wild haven't had, where if the top line isn't going, you have several things you can kind of switch as long as you're healthy. You can kind of flop around, like, and you could even, maybe it is bumping up a Ryan Hartman for a game, or throwing a Liam Ogren in there, or promoting Danila Urov. Like there are additional players even beyond those 6.
Yeah,
really you want to shake it up. You have some options. So third line, I knew the staples were it's going to be Hartman and Foligno. Right now I have Hartman in the middle, I have Foligno on the right, and it sounds like a potential of it'll be Marcus Johansson on the left wing there. I'd prefer it be Liam Ogren personally, but it sounds like that's going to end up being Johansson. And then the fourth line is very interesting because you have Nico, Sturm, Yakov, Trenin, and then it'll likely be either Johansson or Ogren, depending who's not on the other line. So that did for me leave, for now, Danila Urov out as the 13th forward. But again, I wouldn't. What
I will just chime in and say is, like, they're not gonna like. I don't think the Wild will be afraid just to straight up bench Johansson if Ogren's playing well, right? And if they
100%.
Whereas like in years past, he had a bigger contract. He was kind of a staple. Maybe staple's too far, but staple the lineup anyways. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, we gave you another chance, like, and you clearly wanted to be here, not test free agency to get maybe like a few $100,000 more, right? So you're gonna do what we said. You've built up some credit as far as you've been here for a while, but like if the young guys are playing good, like I just don't think the Wild are going to be attached to Johansson like they seemingly have been for the last couple of years, playing him too much.
Yeah, and I think personally he fits. Like I think he'd fit better, like him and Nico Sturm on your fourth line. Like you have some good sneaky speed there, some good two-way play. You have Trenin and Sturm for the forecheck, Johansson a little bit of scoring touch. Like I think he fits there where Ogren fits more of that like bang it style and kind of chaos that what Hartman and Foligno are going to play. So like to me, like not even like skill wise, just player fit. But yeah, that'll kind of be an interesting story. I think like between Johansson, Ogren, and Tarasenko, like how those three move through the lineup, because I think they're all going to be kind of interchangeable.
Julia, let's hope that the fourth line is as good as Brett is making them, projecting them to be here, because as soon as his value even creeps up a little bit, you get him the fuck out.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah.
What do it? Love the person, hate the contract.
Exactly. Finally, I want to go through special teams quick because I think like I did allude to like how much better the second unit looks. So first power play unit I would expect is the same with Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, Zuccarello, and Boldy. And then it sounds like it'll be Zeev Williams, PP2 quarterback. So that makes sense to me. Second unit I think looks a lot better. You have Hartman, Rossi, Tarasenko, Faber, and then I would guess it's probably Johansson. But again, this could be a spot where if Urov is in, maybe it's Foligno if they're looking for a net front guy. Like I wouldn't staple Johansson in there, but I would put him in there for now because they do like his ability with zone entries and stuff like that. So, and his ability to skate the puck up the ice. So
again, Tarasenko, Urov, and Ogren potentially, getting time with the team this year. I mean, man, the special teams have the potential to be a lot better. Let's be honest, like they're going to be a lot better. They're going to be a lot better than they were last year because we'll actually have some healthy bodies. Knock on wood. And what I'm excited for this year is just there's just going to be some new faces. Like the team, though there's a lot of returning players, I feel like just the makeup, the identity is going to shift a little bit with just some of the new young faces that we're hoping we're led to believe are going to have elevated roles and actual, roles on this team in the top 6 or, staple on the third line or all these important positions that we keep talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think they should be better. Just got to stay healthy. Final little bit here, penalty kill. This is where I struggled figuring out like what the combinations would be based on what we've seen, what they brought in. So I came up with my starter being Eriksson, Ek, and Foligno. And then to start the year, it's probably Middleton Spurgeon as your PK1. I know Nico Sturm and Brock Faber on the second unit. The other two are as good a guess as anybody's. I went with Boldy, who I know they were using there down the stretch. And I think a Sturm Boldy, like you are now actually afraid of those two maybe breaking out for a 2-on-1 than you were of Trennan and Goudreau, right? And then, of course, that said, and then at my third, I didn't really know like if they might just run 2, if they will do a third. If they win a third, I could see Ryan Hartman maybe getting some time. I don't know if they'd play Rossi in that spot. Maybe they would. Maybe if they're trying to up his value, they give him a look there. And then I think maybe Trennan gets another look on the kill, and then defense is probably Spurgeon and Middleton again.
Yeah, I mean, Trennan hasn't been bad on the kill because he doesn't have to keep up with the players, skate up the ice.
And I think there was a Russo report out there that there may be potential that part of Kaprizov's contract is they may like approach him about potentially playing on the PK. So we'll see if that comes to fruition at all either. But I do think we see Boldy out there. I think a Boldy Sturm makes a lot of sense.
What do you mean the contract that he will or that we can play you on the PK? You're not gonna
well, like see if he wants to, and that like maybe being part of like I don't know why I don't know, but I don't know. If
Russo is definitely stirring the pot because that is friggin' that is grasping for something to talk about in the offseason if I've ever heard something.
This was actually a while ago, but
okay. I was gonna say because when the Sedins re-signed in Vancouver on their last contract and Tortorella came to town, they didn't have no choice. they went from 80-point players to 40-point players blocking shots on the PK. Yeah. I will never forget that year, Brett. That was they went from President's Trophy to Kessler leaving, friggin' Luongo getting pulled or not chosen for the Heritage Classic, and Eddie Lack went in. Sedins were blocking shots on the freaking penalty kill. Torts went to fight freaking Bob Hartley, suspended 20 games. # free Torts. And after all of it, the Sedins said that even though they didn't have the success under him, Torts is their favorite coach that they've ever had. Oh, one and done, baby. One and done.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe where the contract piece pays in. Like, hey, if we're gonna make you the highest paid players like Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid's the world are killing penalties, you're going to be doing that too. Like I think
I agree with Cosmo. I feel like if you're one of the best on the planet, like you theoretically should be able to do everything, and you should be able to kill penalties better than the average just other player. Now, don't get me wrong, there's penalty kill specialists. Shout out to freaking Jay Beagle. But straight up, Jay Beagle could win faceoffs and kill penalties. That's it. But he did it damn well. Yeah. Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. And like, I think, yeah. And like, I don't know if it's Kaprizov like saying, I don't want to play on the penalty kill, or if it's just the Wild we'd rather have you fresh for the first shift at full strength rather than being tired and like having to go with like, whatever your first shift is, Liam Ogren and Marco Rossi over the boards versus Kaprizov and Boldy and Ek. I think that's maybe part of it, but I think if you're the Wild, like at this point, you have to just try different things because.
Well, and at this point, you can't just lean on.
So bad.
You can't just lean on him to freaking score goals for you. Like, and don't get me wrong, Boldy put the team on his back at times this last season, but like, I know that Kaprizov has pretty much like been their only star, and I know we've backed Boldy a lot on this podcast. But with some of these guys coming in and with the supposed depth that they're going to have now, like, yeah, they can't just because it's they can't just lean on him to be that guy all the time, because if anything, it's predictable for other teams, man. And we saw it down the stretch too. They just went 3-on-1 on him because they're like, what, Zuccarello's going to go top shelf on the right corner? Maybe, right, but exactly. Like, we'll take that chance.
Yeah. So. I think that last comment there too, and I think like definitely I will say, like, they did briefly use Fiala on the kill, I think, at the end of his time. And I thought he was great. Like, he had so many, like, shorthanded breakaways and stuff. And I think a couple shorthanded goals, and he basically attributed to, like, and I think Evison mentioned it. And it was like, like, we just, like, he can kind of see how the play is going to develop and knows when to attack the gaps and stuff and, like, go after it. And, like, maybe take some risky plays, but at times it pays off and he gets some time. So
yeah, Boldy's a lot more two-way than people give him credit for, man. Because they just say, oh, he's not scoring. Fuck this guy. When he's not scoring, what do you think he's doing? Like, he actually is playing really good defensively. So I was saying that for the last 2 years, man, when everyone's like, oh, Boldy's the streakiest player. Sure, but every fucking goal scorer in the NHL is a little streaky because when they're hot is when we're talking about them, right? Exactly. Like, there's 82 games. You're scoring 30 goals, and most of them you're scoring 2 a night. Gets hot. Yeah, and a lot of those nights you're scoring 2 a night because you're hot. Like, so I was insanely impressed with Boldy's two-way game last year. I thought it took a huge step forward. I thought, like, when he wasn't scoring or he was hitting the post or just having an off night, he was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna just ram motherfuckers into the boards and create space for my line mates.
Right. Yeah. So that's all I got.
Yeah. Dude, Fridley, Mike, Jarl, Cosmo, everyone in the chat here. Thanks, guys. Julia, for hanging out. Thanks to those who donated. Cameron's been donating on, like, every show on the Sota Pod. So shout out to Cameron. Really appreciate you. And Jarl, thank you for joining in on the conversation. We love it. Even if we all don't agree on points, I mean, we're sports fans. We're not going to agree on everything. But the fact that you guys join in on the conversation and give your opinions, we absolutely love that. We love when you guys join in the show as well. If you're listening to the audio of this or watching the podcast later, consider coming over to our YouTube channel and commenting there. I'll shoot any of the comments over to Brett, or I'm sure he'll check back in on the episodes as well. And then if you are listening on Spotify, I think you can give comments now. But the easiest way is to comment on the YouTube video or just hit us up on Twitter. If you are in the YouTube chat right now, I pinned Brett's Twitter. You guys probably already all follow him anyways, but I pinned his Twitter here, so go give him a follow, B_Marsh92, as he's way more active on Twitter when it comes to wild stuff than I am.
Yeah, probably a little bit too much sometimes. That's
well, that's me in, like, fighting these days. I feel like I can't go a day without, like, tweeting too crazy friggin' knockouts or retweeting too crazy knockouts.
Yeah. Well, this will probably be our last show for a while.
Unless, I mean, until Rossi gets signed or something happens.
Yeah, Rossi or Kaprizov, but, like, I almost wonder if Kaprizov, when that event inevitably happens, maybe I'll just jump on one of the other ones, just be like a guest on there for a couple thoughts versus doing a whole show, because I don't think you guys really need to tell you how good Kaprizov is.
Yeah, maybe we'll just do maybe we'll just do like a whole joint show. We'll just get like the Wildly Informed logo on there, Judd's Buds. Maybe Joe Smith will hop in for like a segment or two.
Celebratory.
Maybe if I send Russo a freaking Starbucks gift card, he'll jump on too.
Celebratory beverages. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So otherwise, so some apps Kaprizov, some apps Rossi will jump on, but otherwise,
if Robin Leonard comes back from Thailand,
otherwise, next month and a half or so will be quiet. But then the preseason schedule came out today. We'll be looking at I think a mid-September start for that. So we'll definitely have some preview and some good stuff sometime before that. So it'll be fun.
Do a show breaking down every Wild season,
and I'm sure we'll have a prospects episode still at some point soon as well.
Oh yeah, no, that is 100% going to come up end of August. So usually end of August, it'll be what, our third or fourth?
I think so.
Hell yeah.
I was looking back at some of those.
I gotta find someone to put in my first pick now.
One of the memories came through. I think it was the second one that we did, and I was looking at some of those rankings, and I was like, ooh. It was like Ryan O'Rourke at 9. I was like,
both of my first guys are gone. Firstov's gone. Freaking who's the Dino was gone.
That was a meme at least, but yeah, who's he? I
mean, his name. Yeah, who's the name? I gave an argument. It wasn't a good argument, but it was it could hold up.
Yours was like projectable floor right now, basically.
Projectable floor right now, and more pro games than everyone else. So yeah. And honestly, watch him fucking get like 30-40 points in Boston next year.
He might have like the Kyle Brodziak season though, where it's like out of pure necessity. Like, hey, I never thought I'd root for anyone in a Boston sweater, but I will root for Huizendu. Yeah, I will too for sure. Yeah, that Brazo trade might go down as I don't think it'll be as bad as like the Cam Barker Nick Leddy one, but like because I don't think Huzinov is gonna like pop as like
he's not gonna be a Nick Leddy guy, good, but yeah,
he'll be fine. It'll be like when the Wild basically got Clutterbuck from the Islanders for nothing. That's kind of what it'll feel like. But
yep, right after you got that custom fishing rod and took Ogren out. Did you see that the Becoming Wild?
No, I need to catch up on those.
Oh my god, dude! They released the Who's Nadinov episode 2 days, or not 2 days, but like it was like a week before he was traded.
Yeah, not long ago.
And it was like, I love Minnesota. Some freaking fishing rod, some fishing store like gave him like a custom wild fishing rod. He took Ogren, he took Ogren out to fish because it was like his first time fucking fishing, and it was just like, and then he was gone. Oh. And it's like they clearly spent money on this production and everything only to trade him, which I thought was just like so Minnesota.
Well, I think a lot of the Russians like it here because it's like similar to back home. Like,
well, he's like northern as well. Like he ain't no normal like city Russian. He's like out in the boonies Russian, right? So he does like hill sprints. They were showing it. He was doing hill sprints in the off season for conditioning and stuff like that, right?
I was like Kaprizov's like Instagram stories in the off season. He's just somewhere in the bumfuck middle nowhere of Russia. Like in the wilderness, like eating raw fish.
Well, I think he's like Kirill's from even like more north and secluded. I think Murat was like
because I don't even know how to say Kirill. It's like
Novokuznetsk, right?
Yeah.
No. Novokuznetsk is like the drug freaking capital of Russia right now, but it's a tough place to. There's a hockey team there too, and every American or Canadian who's gone and played for Novokuznetsk is like, dude, I will never set foot in that city again. Like, never.
Yeah, let's see, where is that?
Balboa trading, Schmitty.
Yeah, it's kind of like central Russia, but a little more southern. But
like central Russia is like still northeast
of Kazakhstan, northwest of Mongolia for any geography whizzes out there.
Russia's just so big. It blows my mind. And I'm from Canada, right? Russia still blows my mind how big it is. Yeah. Especially like when it had all those caucuses during the Soviet Union, when it like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, when all the fucking stands were part of it too. It's like, oh my god. No wonder they were a big force out there. But anyways.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kazakhstan, by the way. Their hockey program continuing to do well on all levels.
Always sick jerseys too.
Yeah, actually, Minnesota local, Joseph Lebate played AHL, played a little bit for Columbus this year. He actually played KHL in Kazakhstan. I saw him at Back Channel Brewing recently because he lives in Mound now, and he said he's like played in Kazakhstan, was awesome, was such a different vibe than playing in any of the other Russian cities. Like the travel was sucked, like the road trips were insane. But he said the Kazakhs
like buses down like dirt roads.
Well, I mean, yeah, when you're in that region, but he's like, oh, imagine playing Kazakhstan, then going up playing Siberia and all the teams in between. It's like a 14-hour flight.
Yeah, I'm sure it's crazy.
Not quite 14 hours, but it's long, right? But anyways, he said he was gonna go back to Kazakhstan because he loved the fans, he loved the vibe there, but got an AHL contract and actually played a few games this year. And knock on wood, an NHL team gives him a contract because he's former Vancouver Canucks draft pick, but I think he's from like Burnsville actually too. Now that I think about it, but lives in Mound now.
Who is it?
Joseph Lebate.
That one. It doesn't ring a bell, but I don't know my history that well. But
I just I followed him when he was in Utica with the Canucks, and then he got a Labatt sponsorship, and I was like, oh yeah.
Oh, hey, Abby won.
Yes, I did. Shout out to the. I guess we didn't even shout out to the Abbotsford Canucks, the baby Canucks. And it sucks that their goalie's not going to be playing in the NHL this year. Yeah, Sheila. Yeah. Oh man.
But I actually have now been to Abbotsford, so I spent 2 days there with work.
There you go.
Great city.
I saw when Calgary had them as the farm team when they were the Abbotsford Heat. I saw them play there once, and then I saw Megadeth play at the Abbotsford Arena.
Okay.
Burnsville native Joseph Lebate played University of Wisconsin for 5 years, and then drafted 4th round from the Canucks in 2011.
There you go.
All right, Brett. Great show, long one. Let's get some sleep.
I'm into that.
All right, thanks, guys.
See you next time.
Later.